you don't want to keep the boil, and of course they like to keep it.
Going to order the South Maui Community Plan Advisory Committee at 5:30 p.m. And let's start with a roll call.
Chair Rob Wellman, Vice Chair Daniel Kanahele.
Here.
Tova Callender. Everett Dowling.
Here.
Libuanani Huddleston Kabokan. Vernon Kalanikau. Randolph Leach.
Here.
Mike Moran.
Present.
Woody Nimitz.
Bill.
Wayne Sheep.
Here.
Keoki Balzer.
Here.
Jennifer Sullivan.
Here.
And Brian Ward. Let the record show that all members were present.
That's nice, first time in a long time. Hindi may nalala o kung o lala o kayo ulo na kapapa o lala na wihan na hindi may na o ikapo o kiki na o lala o lala na Maui na kaya o Maui na e o mo ka ko ki ya ki kuka ane na ikama ane na o pono ana i kawai na uka mai ki kai Ikabai ki mai, mahope e honua ka koe, e kuka e ki ani na ikama, ni kele ani na ikama ana, no kadori ano ki ania, ame na po inu ni ke ore, na hoi ame, e tila ame ka po ino i ho, ka po ino ai. So we still don't have live streaming on Akaku. Maybe next time. It's the next time for the last five weeks, so I really hope next time is next time. So I'm live streaming on Facebook again for those, because I keep getting, people keep asking me when you can do live streaming. And we still don't have the ability to test it remotely. The order.
Chair Wellman. May I?
I'm sorry, yes.
I'd like to make a motion to change the agenda a little bit. Under item B, I would like to make a motion that we start with B2. That's where we left off at our last meeting. I believe Maui to Makai Watershed Management. Just have a few more actions left. I think if we take care of that first off, sort of like the appetizer, then we'll really get into the meat. There's a lot of meat in section 2 policies that we're going to be looking at again from section 2. So that's my motion.
Is there a second? Second from Brian. Any objections? Okay. Okay, opening for public testimony on Goal 4 actions, where Goal 4 is Maui to Makai Watershed Management, and policies and actions for Goal 3, which is ready and resilient systems. So opening testimony for those two items to the public. Going once. Yes.
I was apologizing because I took all the agendas from the table. People came in after me and there's no agendas for me. Thank you, Chair Wellman, and nice to see you here from the CPAC. Thank you for your service. My name is Lucy Ann Dinay. I'd like to testify on the matters today. The 2.4, let me grab my notes. These actions that are supposed to address the monitoring that we need for our beneficial outcomes for watersheds, they're great actions. I'm not sure what relationship they have to monitoring. They seem more like mitigation, and that's great. But monitoring is more like seeing how we're doing so that we can understand better what our mitigation should be. So I just, as a person who's been a project manager of a number of long-term projects here for land over the years, just point that out, that you really need to kilo. You need to be looking and seeing how things are doing and then designing your mitigations for it. And then moving to goal 2.3, great policies in there, great actions in there. Particularly great to see the managed retreat fleshed out, some options for the future. We're going to need those options, so it's nice to have some sort of actions that reflect them. We may not have to take all those actions, but even if we have to take some, it's nice that they're covered. And especially, I was appreciative to see a new fire station in Mauka. I think that makes a lot of sense, since the current one is sort of adjacent to a part-time wetland. And also the 3.07 with the cultural resources survey to determine if there are cultural resources, important cultural resources, that are going to be at risk of sea level rise or other hazards. So thank you for your work on this, and very glad that you have taken the time to do a thorough job and look at what could be in our new policy. Since this is going to sit around for 20 years, we might as well think big. Mahalo.
Thank you. Any clarifying questions? Kyoki?
Hello, Lucian. Thank you for coming again and sharing your Manawa. So I concur your thoughts on continued monitoring. I don't know if you were here the night when Kelly King was here.
I've missed two meetings.
She proposed a possible committee after the committee to monitor. So hopefully that will be something we'll revisit at some point in time. Just wanted to make you aware.
That's great to hear.
Thank you, Mom.
Other clarifying questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Next testifier, please.
My name is Tapani Wari. Thank you for having me here, Honorable CPAC. I know many of you. For those who do not know me, I'm the General Manager at Maui Ocean Center. I'm also a board member with Malaya Village Association, that is the local community in Malaya. I am also a board member with Maui Ocean Center Marian Institute. We are currently working at Honolulu Bay, as you've seen in the news. A couple of things I was thinking, since I have only 3 minutes here, what would be really helpful for you, as you look at this plan. I deal with the wastewater issue in Malaya, and it all comes down to money, really. And I think it's great to have all these plans and policies, but when I start saying words like actions, to me that means money. And I work, in the for-profit sector, and I understand what it takes to generate cash flow and make things happen. And we are. Our challenge with the regional wastewater treatment facility in Malaya has been, how do we find funding for this? We believe we can value engineer it. We had actually a very good meeting with the EPA earlier this week, and this project is actually listed as a number 6 on the priority list for the state of Hawaii and EPA, along with 107 all other governmental projects. So the focus really has to be on getting funding and how we can accomplish a lot of these things. The other issue I wanted to share with you is to encourage you and challenge you to look at, and I think I see it here already to a large extent, but really look at the holistic approach. If I may share a quick story, when we were closed for COVID for 306 days, I actually was hands-on project manager, or the facilities and operations manager, and I attended the Chief Engineers Conference in Grand Wailea while we were down, and there were maybe about 125 different chief engineers, and there's only one topic there. Everybody just talked about how can we build bigger walls, seawalls, to prevent the sea level rise coming and threatening our properties. And finally, I had to stand up because I had heard enough, and I said, look everyone, we are really looking at the wrong direction. We need to turn 180 degrees, look at Mauka, and really fix the watershed before we can even hope that we can prevent shoreline erosion happening. When you look at the absolute sea level rise, it's actually, I would say over 40 years, it's been 3.1 inches, if I'm not mistaken, looking at all the data. Of course, then there's relative sea level rise with the land. I'm sorry, 3 minutes up, if I may continue a little bit.
Should I continue? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. If you look at the relative sea level rise, that varies, of course, but you know, here in Hawaii, 2020, we had 301 303D classified marine embayments. That means impaired marine embayment here in Paradise. How is that possible? Sedimentation, excessive sedimentation and excessive nutrients are really the two main drivers for that. So to me, again, things go to the watershed. So let's look at the Mauka and really focus on fixing the watershed. And one more thing, quick thing, if I may add, I think it's important that we really incorporate in the plan the indigenous, areas that have been important, that have been forgotten for many years. In Ma'alaya specifically, Pu'uhele is very important. I don't know how many of you actually know this, but we used to have a kapoli there. This is a freshwater spring. This unfortunately was actually, a restroom was built on top of that, and this kapoli actually went away. And this kapoli actually provided fresh water in Malaya Harbor. This is what Nehu actually came into the harbor for. And Nehu was the bait fish for Aku, and this was the dynamic before we had whale watching and tourism and all that. So all these actions, they impact, and there's a chain reaction. So all I'm saying is we should really be respectful of the environment and really try to be mindful of the changes we are looking to do, and don't think we have all the answers all the time. So I think my time is up. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Wayne?
Tapani, I'm amazed at your sincerity. Are you a member of the condo association along with the commercial people at Malaya?
I'm a board member at Malaya Triangle Association as well. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that.
I noticed a lot of cesspools in your area. Have you had meetings to discuss this problem?
I actually I'm part of the State of Hawaii cesspool working group. In the State of Hawaii, we have 88,000 cesspools. Here in Maui, we have 12,000. Why does this matter? This matters because we have untreated effluent basically going into the watershed. This was my point earlier, what I said, excessive sedimentation and excessive nutrients. This is the main reason also why I'm so involved 4 years now with the regional wastewater treatment facility for Malaya, so we can get all the injection wells. It's actually a technical word, its term is injection well, sir. So this is actually in the whole area, community of Malaya. What we are trying to do is actually take the whole community and fold it under a regional wastewater treatment facility. We believe we can do this very cost effectively, and we can deliver technology that is superior to today's technology, what we have here. We have innovative team and a lot of resources available. So we're very excited about it.
The questions? Gilby? And then
Aloha Tabani, thank you for coming. Thank you for your time. This wastewater facility, I know the new administration is just starting up only in only a few months. Have you had any talks with the new administration, or where are you with this?
We will be meeting Mayor Bisson next week and debriefing him of the issue. He has been aware of what's going on, and he did publicly support the project during the campaigning, and so that's on his record. So I think he's supportive, but we'll find out.
Thank you for your work on that, by the way.
Yeah, thank you.
Daniel.
Hi, Tapani.
Hello,
Welcome to the CPAC.
thank you.
Is the $11 million that the previous council earmarked and the mayor agreed to set aside for the wastewater project in Maui, is that money still there?
This was actually $9.5 million. So far the financial journey has been, we received $33,000 from Maui OED to do the LiDAR survey on the shoreline. That has now been completed by Fukumoto Engineering. We applied for $1.25 million GIA grant from the state of Hawaii. They approved $250,000. That should be forthcoming shortly here. We now have a contract in place. Like I mentioned earlier, we had a meeting with EPA. We are number 6 on the priority list within a group of 107 other priorities statewide. So most likely we will get this $9.5 million through SRF funding. We've been also in discussions with Senator Brian Schatz, and he's looking to get Biden earmarks funding from the Biden infrastructure funding, and maybe somewhere around 1.2 or something like that. We'll see the actual quantity, what it may end up being.
What is the estimated cost for building the wastewater treatment plant and the infrastructure at Maui?
Right now, the placeholder we have, based on the estimates we have done, we are looking about $9.5 million, but we seem to be adding more things like PV. We actually want to see this become net zero project. It's going to probably end up costing a little bit more, but it is going to be in that vicinity. Per toilet, that's how, or per bedroom, I'm sorry, that's usually how these things are measured. At that level, the cost is about $12,500 per bedroom. Usually when you see municipal projects, they are around 40, 50K. Thank you.
Sir? It is easy to see government as your piggy bank. When is private industry going to step up to the plate?
I'm sorry, when is?
It is easy to see government as your piggy bank.
Yeah.
When is private people going to step up to the plate to participate?
Actually, this is part of the dynamic. So the local community, they are responsible for removing their injection wells. The existing, 3 of them have failed already out of 10. They are responsible for the removal, cleaning, and then the connection to the force main that will be installed mock-up of Hawaii Street. When we started speaking with the Maui County originally, the message was very clear. We do not have funding. We do not have engineering staff. So that's one thing I would publicly here like to state. We, as a county, we need to get more engineers on staff here so we can really look at these infrastructure projects and execute them. And of course, money is the other side. But private entities or the owners in that area, they're also responsible. They need to have skin in the game. The initial wastewater feasibility survey actually started by 2 of the condominiums paying $10,000 and then Malaya Triangle Association, the commercial area, paying $10,000, so that was 30. And council member Kelly King at that time, she added $6,000. So she wanted to have an addendum to see what would be the cost of conveyance to Waikapu, with Mike Atherton now developing that area. So that was done at the same time. It became very clear very fast that it needs to be a decentralized regional plant. That is the most cost-effective way of doing it.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Further clarifying questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Next testifier.
Hi everyone, I'll be brief. Larry Stevens, I'm testifying on my own behalf. I was up at the Mount Makalao Forest this weekend, and I have some news from the ground to tell you. The pigs have taken over, and now they're pig ruts all over the forest. And I think this is just another sign that we got to get up there, we got to get some fencing, we got to get some ungulate control, because all that dirt that those guys exposed is going to come down our mountain and make our water brown again in the next storm or two. So just a little bit from the ground. Thank you.
Clarifying questions? Daniel?
Larry, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear. What forest were you at?
This is the Makawa Forest.
Oh, Makawa. Okay, thank you.
Further clarifying questions? Next speaker, please, or next testifier. Okay, closing testimony once, twice, gone.
Karen's not testifying.
Okay, public testimony closed. So, okay, we are going to start on the remaining actions under goal 4, waste watershed management. And let's see, we finished 4.12, so the next one is 4.13. However, there were a couple of suggestions that would fit right in there in the previous group of restoration. And so I just wanted to check what you guys think about that. One was from the planning department, provide resources, very appropriate here, provide resources for the protection and rehabilitation of riparian zones with feral ungulate fencing and native plants. So I'm just going to read these up, and then if anyone wants to make a motion, then we'll discuss them. And if possible, put that up on the screen so everyone can see what we're talking about.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. It's on my computer.
This
It's
is
on my screen, it's just not
okay.
there.
It's at the bottom of the page which says 136.
Oh, it's so weird. I can't see it on my screen. Oh, no. All right, there we go. Let's get the pictures.
Just a little further up.
This is the planning department one.
This is an additional one which is proposed by the planning department. Provide resources for the protection and rehabilitation of riparian zones, feral ungulate fencing, and native plants.
So moved.
Okay, so we have a motion, and second by Dova. Okay, discussion? Any objections? Okay, finally we have added an action, provide resources for the protection and rehabilitation of riparian zones with feral ungulate fencing and native plants. The next one proposed by the planning department is develop and implement a plan for R1 reuse. And Michael Reyes proposed a kind of a similar one, but a little more wordy. Support R1 reuse on the landscape to mitigate for axis deer damage, recharge depleted aquifers, and provide forage for livestock, local food security. This is on the same page, the bottom 136. So I think if a motion is made, it should be for one of the two, not for both, because they're kind of overlapping. One is the superset.
Is there a motion? I'd say that actually, when I think about it, Michael's text is more of a policy than an action, since it says to support reuse, whereas the planning department says to develop and implement a plan, so that's more of an action. Tova?
Referring back to language that I suggested a month and a bit ago, it's a take on this accelerate funding for R1 reuse on the landscape to mitigate for access deer damage, recharge depleted aquifers, and provide forage for livestock. The reason I've added the accelerated funding is we currently do have plans for R1 reuse. That's not where the holdup is. The holdup is having the capacity and the money to kind of move it through faster. And if we learned anything when we were doing our bit on the water issues for the south side, it's criminal that we are not reusing all of this R1 water. So I think something that speaks to prioritizing the funding to get it done is what we need.
Now things are coming back to me. It's kind of faded in my memory, but yes, that was a long time ago. And I actually wrote to Director Eric Nakagawa and asked him, isn't there a plan already? Because it's good to know before we say create a plan, whether there already is a plan. But he hasn't responded. But I agree, it's the funding that's missing, not the plan, as far as I know. So, I think, are you the only one who has that text?
You all have it in your tidy binders where everything is organized by date. It's pink.
It's pink.
Can you reread it?
I think it's pretty much what Michael said, but the beginning is accelerate funding for R1 reuse. And then the rest is the text that Michael has.
Are you going to make a motion, Tova?
Yes, please.
I second that motion.
Seconded by Daniel. So please read the whole thing from the beginning, just so we all know.
Accelerate funding for R1 reuse on the landscape to mitigate for access deer damage, recharge depleted aquifers, and provide forage for livestock. Local food security.
Discussion? Any objections? Okay, fine, we've added an action to accelerate funding for R1 reuse. And then we had, this has come up in a couple ways. I mentioned this earlier too, but Charlene Schulen-Margosa proposed purchasing wetlands with 7 TMKs, and we had this as a testimony by Kelly King in the past as well, and designated as open space protected lands in perpetuity. So these are wetlands in North Kihei. They're not all right by the they're kind of spread out. Some of them are together, but some of them. Actually, I think I did make a map that showed them, right? I did that earlier. Yeah, it showed exactly where they are. But these are places. The reason for this, of course, is because we don't want to build there. This is what's stopping the stormwater from running into the oceans, and we don't want people to have their houses destroyed by stormwater either. So that's the reason. Yes.
And I did miss the meeting about this, but so the properties are owned by who?
There are a whole bunch of individual. It's not all one. They're not contiguous.
Yeah.
Kind of spread out.
Okay, and so the purchase, so they are deemed wetlands, though, or by the property owners, or I'm a little bit confused. So they want to make these officially wetlands, So buy them from the property owners? What are we, can you
Yeah,
explain that again?
The proposal is that the county come up with money to buy them and preserve them.
And have the owners been contacted? Are they willing to do it, or is this something?
I think it's a mix, actually. Most of them would be very happy to get rid of those because they know they're never going to develop them.
Is because they can't develop, it's not
Right.
permitted?
Right.
Okay, because it's deemed wetlands?
Right.
Okay, so I just wanted to confirm that. And the cost for these, we'll just vote on it and then, how does this work?
There was an amount in Kelly's letter to the mayor, right? Does someone have that? It's like 5.8 million, or I forget how much it was exactly. Brian?
I guess maybe it's an ignorant question, but if they're deemed wetlands and they can't be developed, why do we have to buy them?
They are not deemed wetlands. They are flood zones primarily, and they do actually have development rights. So this is where maybe a transfer of development rights. There's other ways to do this, but purchasing the word wetland is not appropriate here.
So that's why I asked. So if I could I continue? So that's the reason I asked. I don't want to vote on something if it's not going to mean anything in terms of what it's deemed. So you just confirmed that it's not deemed wetlands. Do I agree with not building on it? So the motion to vote on this is to proceed with the possibilities of purchasing them from these owners?
What about explore and fund, if possible, the purchase of the TMKs to prevent development in flood zones?
Brennan?
Can you get point of information from someone in the audience? Is that possible?
Sorry, say it again?
Point of information from someone from the audience? Is
Oh,
that
okay. Yeah, sure.
Lucian. So, I intervene in this project. Is like 44 acres. But only a portion, like a very small portion of it is designated as wetland. But 1 TMK. So what would the proper language, be for what we're trying to do here? Because you know what I mean, it's only just a portion of it, but then there's like 44 acres of it. So are we talking wetland or TMK designation, or we suggesting some of these parcels, like 44 acres, be changed into open space? I just talking out loud. Maybe you might have some background on this, Lucian?
I'm happy to provide what I have. I read the letter that Kelly King sent, but my understanding was the parcels she identified were along 2 gulches, by Puilani and Kulani Hakoi. And the ones along Kulani Hakoi, 2 had partial development rights, 2 parcels did, 1 had no development rights. I mean, basically, they are where the river floods, is where these parcels are. The ones along Waipuilani, kind of similar. They're where the water goes, and then 1 is kind of adjacent to where the water goes. They didn't have the Welakahau parcel listed there. They didn't have the Sugata parcel listed there. They didn't have those other parcels listed. Only those 2 gulches were reflected in this request. And several of the, I think there were 7 parcels listed, or 8, and at least 3 of them had no development rights. In the county website, it just said, no taxation. It's not a usable piece of property for development because it floods. It's a flood zone, basically.
Could you put up the map, because it has the TMK numbers on it as well?
Thank you, Lucian. So, what about the gulches? Can we work on the gulches being open spaces?
I think once you see the map, you'll see that these are the gulches. I mean, the 2 main gulches anyway. it's still cut off at the top and the bottom, but those are, that's most of it, I guess. There's one at the top and there's one at the bottom as well. I think you can see where the gulches are.
Yeah, so that's why Kuilani, the one on the bottom. So, Gary.
Yeah, for clarification, some of these may already have some pre-existing approvals on it. So I believe the one southernmost on the map, again, has been pre-approved for an affordable housing project.
But there is a portion that does have some impacts from floodway.
Sorry, I think the battery just died out on me. So, but again, I think overall, there could be the potential for pursuing, some possible funding opportunities to look at acquisitions. But again, at least for that one parcel, I know there already is some developments that's been slated and design underway and construction and so forth. At least fire breaks.
So the top one is Kulani Hako'i, right? So now maybe we get a chance, right, Garrett? As far as plans and because this is something I brought up a long time ago. I know somebody know the answer, but until I knock on the right door, how you own one gouge? Like Kulani Hako'i. How you own that. And then it changed hands. And then it became separate TMKs in one gouge. But maybe because it was never designated as an open space. I don't know. So the one on the bottom, there's not so much we can do, right? Or maybe we get a chance with Kulani Hako'i because there's no plans in right now. Another question, maybe I gotta recuse myself because of certain projects I might be engaging into. So maybe I should just disclose that right now.
So just as information, that the top one there, that gulch, that's the one that Casey has been working on for decades to make a greenway. It's supposed to be a greenway that goes all the way from South Kihi Road up under the highway where the high school is, up into the MRTP. So this would have been wonderful, and it was in the works, and the county was trying to buy those properties, but then a developer snapped them up, hoping to be able to develop in the wetland. Kind of ridiculous.
I changed my mind. I like to talk some more. So the guy, I don't know if Mike was over our house, but the owners, they was on selling for $400,000. The entire Kulani Hako'i. And I said, oh, it's not bad, yeah, but still, how you own one gouge? And then they was gonna donate it to like Hill, but they didn't want the liability of what it causes to the adjacent properties. So Parks was interested for like probably a day, but they didn't want the liability. So here we are. Yeah, just stuck on this whole thing. Because then they went from 400 to a couple million, and I'm just saying it's just not right. It's crazy.
Mike?
Yeah, what I can add on Kalani Hako'i, my understanding, or our understanding from KCA, is the land was owned by a local family for decades. And then another entity came in, a gentleman from the mainland, I forget his name now, but he came and talked to us, and he bought into it, seemingly thinking he could develop it. And we explained to him about the flooding issue, and he talked about, well, they had rights, but we said, well, Public Works had told us, the different directors over the years, that there's no way we're going to give them a permit to develop in there because it's going to flood. And Public Works then pressured it was a team of owners, but the guy from the mainland became the kind of the spokesman. And his point was, well, I put a lot of money into this. And our answer was, well, but you made a mistake. You know, you came in and bought something you didn't know about, and you won't be able to develop there. So then, yeah, that's what he came up with. He wanted $1 million, and we went to the administration, and they said, no way, we're not going to spend that kind of money because you can't build there. So why are we going to buy a headache? And then he was seemingly kind of stuck, and then Public Works was pressuring them to, you have to take care of that. That's your land. You've got to clear it out. The silt is building up higher and higher, as we know. And the answer was, we can't afford to do that. So they said, well, you better do something. You're responsible for it. So somewhere along the line, Peter Savio came in and bought that property with the intent of developing it. And he went in and did some grubbing and grading, and Public Works then said it was a violation. And they posted the violation right up there for the public to see, to stop him from doing that. But he still talks that he's going to develop that land. And of course, he also owns he bought the other land from the Pham family to develop down there. So again, it's these people coming in and we're going to do this, but past Public Works director said the same thing about that one. We're never going to give them permits in it. They were trying to build, and Savio's answer was, well, I'll build on stilts. You know, I'll build it up. And they said, no, that's you just don't do that. You can't build there. So now we're kind of at this stalemate where I expect that Savio would sell it to the county for his price. And then you get into that situation where they hold the threat, we're going to build there, but to me as a layman, I don't think that they'd be able to. I think Public Works would say, we're not going to give you the permits. Whether you've got the entitlement from planning is one thing, but if you can't get the permits from Public Works to proceed, it seems like he's stymied. But, you know, I say he, but, you know, it's a big corporation. They have a lot of money and they can hold on for a while. So that's my understanding of that, the background on one, and then the second one was pretty quick, that Savio went to the Planning Commission and said that he wanted to build there, and there was massive number of testimony against it from citizens group, and also professionals. Amanda Cording testified. Somebody said to her, well, if they built there, would you purchase a home there? And she said, no way, why would you purchase a home there? But the planning commissions had one person who said, I know somebody there, it doesn't flood too bad, so they extended the SMA permit to say go ahead. But again, it's still, Public Works seems to be the impediment that they couldn't develop. But it becomes a financial issue. How much is the public willing to pay to stop it from the possibility of it developing? Mahalo.
Good, Brian?
So I have to apologize, I'm maybe still a little confused. If they're not able to get permits to build, I still don't understand why we would purchase it. It seems, if our policies say they can't build and they're not going to get permits, it seems odd to me that we would fund to buy something that we're going to protect, which is great, but I'm just not making that connection. So if somebody can help me, it's...
So one thing, there's what Mike was just saying about the planning commission. You know, we don't control everything, so the things could change. You know, 2 years, maybe the new appointees in the planning commission could say, go for it. That's one. The other one is there's much better uses for these properties. I mean, like I said, Casey has been working for decades to try and make that a greenway so people can walk from one side of North Kihei to the other, and all the way across under the highway, and then be able to use the Mauka land also for recreation and stuff. That would not interfere at all with its use as a gulch. As a matter of fact, it's part of Amanda Cording's proposal. So those are the two reasons anyway. We don't have a motion, so if no one makes a motion, it fails. It falls anyway. Motion by Mike. A second.
I'll second it for discussion.
Second by Daniel.
Okay, I won't repeat everything I said before, but I think one of the reasons is what Rob mentioned, that things change. A different public works director comes in and decides, yes, we need affordable housing, so I'm going to let them build there. Or the planning commission has, from my point of view, for years, the personnel changes, but they still seem to approve more things than they don't. It's more like, well, we need the development. You know, there's the different sides. One side comes in and said, these are local people who are the builders, the workers, and these guys need jobs, so we're going to approve it for that reason. And others are more like environmentalists are saying, this isn't the place to build it. We have plenty of land above the highway. Build up there. Don't build in these areas that are dangerous. And particularly, it seems that the attitude is, well, these are going to be affordable housing. So it's almost like, well, it's okay for the poor people. We'll stick them in there in land that's dangerous, that's fire prone, or flood prone. So that seems to be the going back and forth. But that's how I feel about it. That it would be money well spent. And I'll give one other example to my friend sitting diagonally across from me, that was one portion of land that the county did agree to purchase in South Maui, was that plot on South Kihei Road. And it was empty for years, and I think there were 4 plots of land, and KCA continuously asked administrations and different council members to purchase that land, so we didn't build it. And 3 of the, if I'm right, there was 4. 3 of the plots did end up getting mega mansions built. And there was 1 left, and the owner of the bakery in town owned the land. And my understanding is he went to the then mayor and said, I would be willing to sell this to the county if you can come up with a negotiable price. And they did. And it was going to be a parking lot for the park, because it was adjoining land to the park. But a couple of local gentlemen said, we would like to clear out this land and do a project in here to restore native plants. And they have been doing it for years. And Coco did a presentation for KCA, showed what he had done down there with a spectacular PowerPoint, and that's on the KCA website if anybody wants to see it. But if you want to talk to the man who's doing it, who's down there 3 or 4 times a week, fixing the land and teaching the youth. So if you want an example of what can be done if the county says, I'll purchase this piece of land, and how you can approve it, that's a sterling example of it. Okay, too much talking.
First Coco and then Brian.
Oh, go ahead, go ahead. No, I don't think you said anything.
So thanks, Mike. I guess if I recall correctly, didn't we write a policy that stated that affordable housing would not be built on wetlands? So I guess I just want to make sure we're connecting all the dots by what we're proposing, because if we wrote a policy to state you can't do affordable housing in wetlands or flood zones, or I don't remember the exact verbiage, it seems like we're almost kind of looking to spend money to buy land, but we're writing policy that states they can't develop on it. So I guess I cannot just, it's not connecting to me, because if we're writing the policies that are preventing what others are trying to develop, isn't it then counterproductive? Now, if the answer is that we want to build on it and do restoration, because I think that's a different argument. I just want to make sure that we're clear that if we've written policies that we think, or suggesting writing policies that support the non-development, I wouldn't use that as an argument to why we should be purchasing it. If we want to purchase it because we want to make it more green space, that I would be more in line with. I want to make sure we're clear on why we're making the recommendation if we're spending money.
Yeah, the proposal is actually designated as open space, protected lands in perpetuity. Coco?
I think that I'm just kind of wondering how certain it is that, you know, those properties are protected, you know. I feel like if the county, that area that the county purchased, that it is protected under the county. But when it's not purchased, then it's kind of like, you know, I always kind of worry that that somewhere down the line, it can be up for grabs, you know, and you know, Mike is right. We wouldn't have had the opportunity to do what we've done. I remember same thing, noticing all those lots emptying and slowly getting eaten up one by one. And as soon as we heard that that parcel was purchased, we were able to come in there and make our plans for that area. Even though we've been coming to that area a long time, but that's my concern. You know, I know that we're kind of at the same goal, going after the same goal as protecting these wetlands, but what is the sure thing? You know, it's the thing that I'm kind of worried about, concerned about.
Daniel?
I don't, I have trouble with the language, with the wetlands. What if we say explore, someone brought this up, I think maybe Karen did, explore the feasibility of purchasing flood-prone parcels such as TMK, blah, 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 something like that. Purchasing flood-prone parcels such as and the rest stays the same. The county will do that anyway. You know, if they have money, say an open space fund, and there's opportunity to purchase one of these properties, and if it's feasible, then they can do it. If it makes sense, right?
So do you
That's
accept?
my little motion to amend.
Do you
That's
accept?
my friend.
Mike accepts that. Brennan?
If it's open space, right?
It says open space, protected lands in perpetuity. Right, yes.
Quick question, and I'm looking at this just from a business perspective, that if my parcel is listed, I'm gonna neck the price right up. So is it advantageous for us to list them? Because me, I'd be, if my intent is, hey, I have property, you're interested in it, I'm not gonna give it to you what I paid for it, I'm gonna look for a profit. So are we potentially endangering how much money we end up spending? Because obviously if it's feasible and all that, I just asked that as a question, is do we want that listed, or is it something more general that we explore opportunities where, to Daniel, what you're saying, feasibility of purchasing flood zone prone areas, something of that nature, but not listing specifically what they are.
So Wayne first and then
Mr. Chairman. You know what the problem with this? We have this every time at a meeting. Everyone wants to play attorney. And you bring up good questions. If you only had a corporate counsel here, they're getting paid, bring them here to answer the legal questions and see what we can frame in language. How about a planning department? Was an attorney. Everyone wants to play attorney.
Do you want to answer that, Karen?
Unfortunately, the corporation council, like the rest of the county, is understaffed right now. So asking the attorney to be here every Wednesday is not possible. It's also a very high ticket item for the attorney to come. This is not a legal question, Brian's right, it's more of a business question. If you do name the parcels, it's more likely that they'll be like, yep, raise the price. And he is a businessman.
Everett?
I think it's okay to leave the TMKs in there because it's not, it doesn't matter what the owner says the price is, or what the owner wants to sell it for. It's based upon appraised value. And I think we could probably get a better deal if we put in there purchasing under the threat of condemnation. No, because it serves the owner well. Because if you sell under the threat of condemnation, there are some tax benefits. You have a much longer time to exchange into something. So it's advantageous for the owner if it's done that way.
Mike, a comment?
Yeah, I would just add that with the two parcels that we're looking at, Peter Savio is certainly aware of the situation. It's not like all the ones he's going to be made aware because the TMK is up there. He's aware of the situation. He knows that he's been cited for violations. So he's certainly aware. I don't think that's going to alert him to even know to raise the price. He's aware of it, right? That's my opinion. Thank you.
I think that the purpose of this is because there's already other action happening. There's a bunch of letters, there are people working, there's committees and things. So this is just saying we support that. Further discussion? So was that a suggestion for an amendment to put in under threat of condemnation?
Friendly amendment if Mike accepts it.
Okay, under the threat of condemnation. Okay, further discussion? Is that okay, Daniel? Yes, it is. You blinked. Okay. Further discussion? Any objections? I'm going to adopt this additional action item. Can we do one more and then we'll finish this section and then we have a break? Okay. There's one more that was proposed by the Maui Village Association. Since this is section talking about restoration and it calls out specific areas. They say that they're also currently pursuing sand dune preservation at Haycraft Park and Ma'alaya Bay Beach. Please include that in this section. So I'm kind of wondering if maybe Keoki would make a motion there to just...
This was one of the, Haycraft Beach was one of the actions you guys listed at a previous meeting. You guys did some A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J actions at the February 22nd meeting.
Yeah, we already, this sounds eerily familiar.
Okay, so it's in?
Yeah, we already.
Okay. In that case,
language and everyone adopted it, I believe. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, though.
In that case, 5-minute break? Is that no? 5-minute break, okay. Back at 6:35. Okay, reconvening at 6:37 p.m. And the next one is 4.13. Develop a mitigation plan for repetitive loss and severe repetitive loss properties within South Maui. That includes raising building, elevation, relocation, floodproofing, transfer of development rights, or buyout. Is there a motion? Motion from Tova. Is there a second? Second by Mike. Discussion? We don't have a whole lot of those, but we do have some, especially in North Key. That just seems like a bad idea, to have properties which you have to rebuild, and then they get flooded, and you rebuild them again. You have to pay for it and rebuild them again.
Chair, our planners aren't here.
Pardon me?
Our planners are not here.
You've changed.
Let's see, we had a motion, did we get a second?
Yeah,
Mike, okay. Discussion? Brian?
I'm going to get back on my little thing from a couple weeks ago, which is it's great to develop a plan, but if you don't implement the plan, it doesn't do you much good.
So you're proposing develop and implement?
Correct. So a friendly amendment would be to develop a mitigation, or develop and implement a mitigation plan.
Tova?
I am not opposed to that, as long as it makes sense from a planning department standpoint, because I guess I'm not clear. So this is an action requesting that the county develop the plan, but I'm wondering whether the implementation would be incumbent on private residences and residents' will. And so I'm not sure if you could implement, if you can say implement, because they would have to come, I don't know. So planning, a clarification would be super.
Brian, where were you proposing the development and implementation part?
We're in 4.1.3.
Oh.
No, I think that's fine.
Tova?
Amendment accepted.
And Mike accepts too? Okay. Garrett?
I just want to double check. So, so who first and second? First and second. Right there.
Discussion? Any objections? We've adopted 4.1.3 with the addition of and implement. 4.14, proposed amendments, the Maui County Proposed amendments to the Maui County Code Flood Hazard Ordinance to implement more strict NFIP substantial improvement regulations for properties in the SFA, in the substantial flooding hazard area. Is that what that stands for? Okay. Including modifying the time frame to 20 years to make it more difficult for older improvements to expire and no longer count towards the substantial improvement timeline. Karen, you want to explain that?
Thank you.
It's a mouthful.
Currently, I believe it's 10 years that you can, so if you have a flood hazard and then you modify your house and then you have 10 years before those improvements like phase out for reconsideration of doing more improvements. This actually is to help us with our flood. It should make it so that we get we get a higher flood rating from the National Flood Program. So the more strict National Flood Insurance Program, substantial improvement regulations. So like if you have a house in the flood zone and you're like, I want to expand the kitchen and build a garage, and that's $250,000. After 10 years, that $250,000 phases out and it's not seen as having been done. So then you can do more improvements on that property. So this is extending it so that you can't keep improving your property.
Just clarifying, so that relates to flood because improving your kitchen would...
Because you're doing it in a flood zone. Okay. So then in the flood zone you get insurance, and then you're using that insurance. A lot of the properties that have filed for National Flood Insurance are repetitive loss properties. So they're filing more than once.
I move to approve.
Okay, motion by Everett. Second by Tova. Discussion? Brian?
I guess I'm questioning the word propose amendments. Would we not need to identify them first, or are they identified? I guess I'm just questioning the word proposed.
I'm pretty sure this is a Maui County. Oh, this is the Department of Public Works needs to propose those amendments. One of the amendments that is identified is including modifying the time frame. So there's one amendment identified, and then there's regulations that identify more strict regulations, like nationwide, to get a higher flood rating. So it's saying, let's try to get a higher rating. We want a better grade. Study harder. Just kidding.
I'm trying.
Daniel?
This may be a stupid question, but why do we want a higher flood rating? What's the benefit to us for that? Is it a money benefit? I'm not sure. Grants?
I think there's more grants, and the flood insurance, I believe, is lower for the people who are buying it. Some of the improvements to the flood hazard ordinance would also move things more out of the wetlands and have lower impact development as standards. There's standards that has been supported through you guys that would be part of that.
Okay, I feel less dumb now. Thank you.
Any more discussion? So, Brian, are you proposing to change that, or are you okay with the wording now?
I'm fine to keep it if everybody's okay with it. I just didn't really understand the word propose. It would seem that we would more want to identify and then propose versus, I just didn't know I don't know who was proposing, so I was just looking for clarification.
Karen?
You could say identify and adopt amendments to Maui County.
I like that. So a friendly amendment.
Friendly amendment. Tova, Mike? It's Everett, okay. Okay. Identify and adopt amendments. For discussion? Any objections? Okay, adopted with that change. 4.15, coordinate with Maui County Floodplain Manager to pursue funding opportunities from organizations like FEMA's Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities Program for community-wide flood mitigation projects and support implementation of nature-based solutions to enhance ecosystems and reduce flood risks. And on that one, Robin was proposing to add natural infrastructure, as we did on other similar actions. Do you have a motion? Moved by Everett. Second by Toba. Cody?
Can we add include instead of support?
It's okay with Everett? Okay with Toba? Do we want to add natural infrastructure like we did in the other sections earlier? With the explanation that was given to us at that time, that the difference is that natural infrastructure means using existing things rather than building things which are good for nature.
I'll make that friendly amendment to add natural infrastructure.
Everett accepts. Toba? Okay. For discussion? Any objections? Okay. Adopted 4.15 with that small addition.
Rob,
Yes.
can I propose a very similar, almost identical to 4.15, instead of saying the community-wide program, community-wide flood management program, say a pilot. Basically, this is really good, and this would be great if we could do this community-wide, but I would like to encourage a pilot program, just Malcolm Mackay flood mitigation project. Just pick one gulch, and just prove that it can be done. Work out the funding bugs on a smaller scale, and then go to I look at it as kind of a stepping stone to the community-wide solution.
You can formulate that?
Yes. Okay. Let's.
It's coming up already. Magic.
Great. It's amazing. It's amazing. It just reads my mind.
It, it's there.
It's terrific. Yeah.
Flowing right out. If we can keep Cody's language that include implementation. Oh, you got it. Got it.
So that was a motion. Do we have a second? Second by Brian. Discussion? I think it's always good to start with a pilot project.
Your Malco to Mackay piece, I think, is kind of key to have in there.
Oh, right. Yes, Malco to Mackay. Yes, Brian?
To go on Everett's statement that he was making, do we also want to put something in around to identify either, I use different language, but obstacles or challenges in the resolution of those to be able to move the project forward? Again, I'm kind of not saying those are the right words, but.
Maybe say identify the implementation process.
I think I was looking at it from a slightly different, so it's identify and implement the project plan or the pilot, but then I think we need to report back on what happened in the pilot and learn from that so that we don't keep repeating it over and over if it didn't work.
So identify, implement, and evaluate.
I think it's more than evaluate, it's
Just put in do the kind. The kind.
the word's not coming to me, but it's
evaluate.
Okay.
Does that look good to you, Everett?
Yes.
Okay. And who seconded that? Was it Brian? Okay.
I'm good with that.
Okay, discussion? Any objections? Okay, we added another action for the pilot project. Let's see, we talk about this one. Okay, well, we talked about that one, okay. Then the next one is also hazards, 4.16. Leverage existing erosion and sea level rise studies to develop and implement, implement's already there, localized beach management and coastal adaptation plans. And then Mark Dicos had a comment that managed retreat needs to be called out explicitly and prioritized, or South Maui could end up like West Maui in 10 to 20 years. Mark's a smart guy. Tova?
I motion with the addition of, at the end, including managed retreat.
Second by Kyoki. Okay. That's it. Discussion? Cody?
Is there any way to include traditional studies as well, traditional practices that are considered studies, like Kilo Aina? Because I think it's very valuable that for those studies that are done when someone comes into the areas and does a study compared to those of those who are actually there on the ground all the time. I think it's very valuable as well. So I'd like to include some sort of language that refers to Kilo Aina or Hawaiian traditional studies. Maybe leverage existing erosion, sea level rise studies, and Kilo Aina.
It's okay with Tova. And who seconded that one? Kyoki. Okay. Okay with you. Discussion? Any objections? Okay, we have adopted 4.16 with that change, with those two additions. Last one in this this topic, topic 4. Prepare an overall improvement plan for county parks that includes a description of proposed facility improvements and approaches to reducing the environmental impact of park facilities. And again, here I had the comment that this should really be in the park section, because parks, that's where parks is going to be looking, not in the. They're not going to be looking at the climate change part. Do you have a motion?
Motion to move this to ready and resilient. Is parks under that?
Yeah, so this is under resilience, but I think it's better under parks.
Yeah.
Parks is in the safe, healthy, livable communities for all?
Yes.
Okay.
And
thank you.
Would you also like to make a motion to accept the language or just move it there?
Ooh. For now, just moving it to parks.
No, I don't want to have to reopen.
You guys want to work on it now? Oh, okay. So, move the parks and accept this language so we can get a second and discuss.
That was a motion. Second by Brian.
Thank you.
Brian?
I'm going to go back to my staple of we need to implement. Just preparing a plan doesn't do it.
Gilk, is that okay with you? Prepare and implement? Yeah. Okay. Discussion? Objections? Vernon?
Anybody can chime in. Just wondering what is like improvements and approaches to reducing the environmental impact of the park facilities. Like, I just thinking what would be environmentally impactful to the park's facilities? Would be like be homeless? Would that be flooding? Any idea what that means? I just like know what that means. Environmental impact of park facilities. So, just asking.
Karen looks like she has not a thought.
So the good news is the planner that helped write this is now at Park, so she knows what that means. The second, so let's see, the environmental impact. One environmental impact of parks facilities is the use of concrete all over the park and parking lots that are impervious surfaces. So maybe the long-term solution would be to use pervious surfaces and just a softer environmental impact, low impact development for parks as well.
Brian?
Sure. I personally would like to see us use more positive language versus reducing, that it would be improving or restoring environmental. I think reducing doesn't necessarily fix the problem, you're just bringing it down a level. I think I'd rather see it that we're making positive improvements. So I would propose changing reducing to restoration or improving, which then begs the question of how do you measure it, so I don't know the answer to that, but I'd rather use more proactive language to reinforce what we're trying to improve or goal is versus just saying we're reducing something.
Do you have a specific language you're proposing?
I guess I would look to planning would be improving or restoring or restoration, which.
This is not really about restoration at all. This is just about, we have these parks, they're great, but they're also causing a lot of problems. We need to stop causing so many problems. But if we can do that and express that in a better way, that's fine. I mean, the issue here is that the parks are not just great. There are some issues still.
Can make pretty. I like that.
I'm fine with improving. If you think there's a different word we should use, then I'm open to that. Improving just feels a little too general.
And also it's kind of like improving the environmental impact. What would you say? That doesn't make sense. What would you say instead?
Help me, guys.
Tova?
I'm not going to help you, Brian. I'm actually going to say the other side. Normally, I'm all about being for something, not being against something. But in this particular case, I worry that this pivot takes it away from that critical look of impact, solution, impact, solution. Because instead, again, love being aspirational about things, but we might miss the fact that the garbage cans are overflowing, there's petrochemicals making their way into the beach, maybe that there's a toilet issue that needs to be resolved. We might miss that if we're not looking at it in terms of environmental impact reduction. I mean, just food for thought.
Okay.
How about if we keep approaches to reducing and improving the environmental impact? How does that sound? A little better? So keep the word reducing and then add your improving as well.
I'm fine with that.
Maybe put in the word mitigate, because we get improvements, and improving on that little tiny, I don't know if that makes it different, but small kind, but mitigating the environmental impact.
I like that.
That's what I was looking for synonyms, so.
Thank you.
I wasn't checking my Facebook, I don't.
That's why I was like, help me out,
I was
guys.
just looking for-
Mitigate, I'm good with mitigate. I don't remember who did the motion, but friendly motion to add the language that was just proposed.
Was that okay? Okay.
And since I proposed it and I seconded it, I agree to it as well.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Further discussion? Any objections? Okay, adopted 4-17 with that. And actually, I'm sorry, I missed something here. That's Robin has suggested in this context proposed facility improvements and restoration approaches. Oh, okay, it says improvements and approaches. She suggested and restoration approaches. I don't know. I think we're done. Unless someone wants to make that motion. Improvements and restoration approaches. Tova?
Not on that, but an additional point, if that's okay. In some earlier visiting of this goal, I had language that I can no longer find that was capturing Tara Owen's point about the need to create a permanent record of what's happening in terms of coastal hazards, because over time, we're losing all that kilo aina that's taken place and all that documentation that's taken place has no house, and we're not able to react to what is historically known. So, had some great language somewhere, something along the lines of create a database of records of coastal hazards to inform actions going forward, or open to suggestions. Yeah, that was a separate action.
Is this right there, leverage existing beat erosion? Oh, put that one there. Yeah.
Yes.
Did we finalize 417, because you're asking if we should put what Robin had said?
I just put that out there. I forgot to mention
Yeah,
that.
because I see it, but I don't know if we should proceed with something else. We're done with 417?
Well, unless someone makes a motion, yeah, we're done.
Yeah.
So if someone makes a motion, we can go back and revisit.
Okay, wait, sorry. Say that again?
If no one makes a motion, then we're done. Otherwise,
Oh, okay.
if you make a motion, then yes, we'll consider adding restoration.
Okay. As long as, I just want to make sure that we're done with that.
Is that what you're thinking, Tova?
It was about impacts, creating a database of impacts from coastal hazards. If anyone has easier access to the comments from Tara Owens, whatever month that was, I'm
burying myself in paper and I can't find it. But she did provide a thought that was very clear along those lines.
Do you remember what date that was?
No.
Go ahead.
Do you want to add in something like in any other relevant information? I mean, or is that just very specific just to that? Is there a little bit broader that might be included that would be useful?
Do you think it would be more clear if we said from wave run-up events, flooding? Do you think it's helpful to have more information? I mean, I think the idea is that we lose that historic memory and we could really benefit from not having lost it.
I mean, can you be as broad as saying and any other relevant information or applicable information rather than we might miss something? I don't know. Just throwing it out there.
Second by Behua. Discussion? Implement?
Of course, implement.
Go ahead.
Do we want to limit it that it's just coastal hazards? And I don't know if there's another term, but it seems like we might not be capturing some data that may not be a full hazard, but is there other levels or things that maybe events is, because hazard to me sounds like you're way up here, but are there other things that are happening on a regular basis that we should be tracking that are more of a longer term impact? And this is not my wheelhouse, so I might not be making any sense, but I toss it out there as, are we going too high and not maybe broad enough to capture more data?
Something between hazard and
So Brian, that's why I would recommend it in any other relevant information or something like that to make it a little bit broader. So, but I mean, I see et cetera in it, so that's kind of what that might stand for. Anything else like that, similar to it? Unless you wanted to say something a little bit more in other relevant data, but I've heard with this if TOVA is.
I think the idea is it needs to be the information that's helpful for informing future action. So if you make it too open, it's never going to happen. No one's going to stay on top of it, and you're never going to be able to find the data you need. So, I mean, maybe the threshold is documentation of hazardous flooding and other events that can inform management or avoidance of future impacts. Yeah, something.
Exactly as you said.
Yeah, like that. Who wrote that down?
You got to tell her that because that sounds good.
I think you have to add to avoid future impacts.
Coastal hazards, flooding. I'll try making a friendly amendment. Correct me if I'm getting this wrong. So after hazard would be flooding and other relevant events to inform avoidance of future events, or mitigation and or avoidance.
Can't avoid events.
Okay. You wanted to say? I'm okay, you can say it. Right. Such as flooding, grave runoff, erosion, and other relevant data to avoid future impacts. Yes, no?
Just one additional bit of wording there. Other to inform mitigation, but other relevant data to inform mitigation of future impacts.
It's kind of like kilo.
It's like perma-kilo, like kilo and lock it down so people in the future can look at it.
It took me a really long time to do that friendly amendment.
Discussion?
But did we accept the friendly amendment?
Is that?
Did we accept the friendly amendment?
Who made the? Okay.
Who made the motion? Who seconded?
Okay. Say it again. Who made the original amendment?
Tova.
Okay. Motion from Tova. Second from
Lua.
So, yeah, because that was the previous, second of the previous wording, so I guess I'll rescind that previous and then support this one.
Well, we didn't vote on the other one, so this would be the current language if
Yeah.
you guys accept this is a
Right.
friendly amendment.
Yes. Okay. Any objections? Okay. I've adopted this additional action on database of impacts. Cody?
Can I propose another one?
She can.
Prioritize the safeguard of our native seed banks as a long-term solution for coastal resilience and runoff.
You have that as a policy, and you need action language, something that the county can do.
What's your intention? What do you want to accomplish?
So basically, allow for our native seed banks to spread and grow.
You could do something like fund, or
What is that?
you could do something like fund or create a plan for something like that. That would be an action.
Okay, yeah, create a plan for not propagate, it's more to allow the time for our native seed banks to grow. I think the problem is because we don't really give the time allowed because it takes months, yeah. So maybe create a plan, implement a plan, or implement plans, maybe, so that others can use it to allow native seed banks the time needed to grow and spread.
And then you had to help with coastal erosion, right?
Yeah, this will help with long-term solutions or this will help with long-term coastal resilience and runoff. Yeah, it'd be good to have a lot of people doing that.
Do we have a second? Second by Kyoki. Discussion? It's got to implement. Lehua?
Just for Cody, In regards to adding the word funding, would you like to put that in there, so in case there is funding to help support this? Because I know Rob mentioned funding, yeah? You said funding, yeah? I mean, it wouldn't hurt.
That's an action
Yeah.
as well.
Okay, but you don't really need funding because it's already there.
But to maybe to help, people do it if it's like, a group or something that can just help Malama, you know what I mean, to take care of the organization. Yeah, I mean, if it's there to do it, it's such a wonderful cause, so.
Okay.
I would hate to leave it out and then miss out on any opportunity.
I mean, we talked about this before, at some point, you may not be able to do this, and other people not be able to do this. We want this to continue regardless of us. We're sitting around the table right now. So that's why funding can help make sure it continues.
Okay, yeah.
And okay with that?
That include funding?
Discussion? Any objections? Brian?
It's not an objection. For whatever reason, I'm struggling with the word help. Completely agree with the intent. It just doesn't feel like it's the right word to me. I don't know what the right word is, so I'm just tossing it out there as I think. I think that's better if you guys would be open to that as a friendly amendment. Actually, Thrive doesn't really fit either.
How about
Encourage.
Spread as a long term, as
What about potentially expand versus support?
How about needed to grow and spread, adding to long-term coastal resilience and preventative runoff. Like add and spread, and then comma, adding to long-term coastal resilience and preventative runoff.
Can you say word for word what you want the entire thing to say?
So right where you are, okay, word for
Start
word.
at the beginning.
Create, implement, and fund plans to allow native seed banks the time needed to grow and spread, adding to long-term coastal resilience and preventative runoff. So after, yeah, comma right there. Or I don't know if you put comma or not.
We wouldn't want the whole plan to fail because we're missing comma. So, second, is that okay? Okay. Discussion? It's happened. A missing comma can change the meaning of a sentence. Any objections? Okay, adopting this additional action. Any more actions to add to this, to the watershed action section? Okay, moving on. I was pointing out to Daniel when we started this meeting that this is the 6th meeting we've talked about watershed management. It's a record. We didn't actually talk about it 6 meetings, but 6 meetings it was on the agenda. 6 meetings it was on the agenda. Okay. Moving on to ready and resilient systems. So we had a few policies left over, I think, from there. Is that right? Oh, Let's see. So we had policies 2.3.16 through 2.3. No. Yeah, 2.3.16 through 2.3.19. So, yeah. Okay. So we're on the wastewater section again. New developments in South Maui, including projects developed under Chapter 201H, Hawaii Revised Statutes, and Chapters 2.96 and 2.97 Maui County Code, must connect to county or private recycled water distribution systems when available. If recycled water infrastructure is not readily available, developments shall be designed to allow for future connections. And we had a couple of comments from Mark Dekos. The first one's not really about this action. The second one is, he suggests strongly recommend exploring dry toilet systems to eliminate up to 40,000 gallons per year per household, with some very sophisticated systems, including multifamily dwellings that turn their waste into a revenue stream with composting. So this is at the top of the page that says 44 at the bottom. Well, actually, his other comment is relevant to this. I was just reading the first part of it. But he says, when designing a net zero energy system, it starts with maximizing efficiency to minimize the need for a large solar system. The same emphasis should occur when designing water systems, to first maximize efficiency and eliminate water use where appropriate, then address recycling the water that is used. Always eliminate waste first before determining the actual need. Good point. But I don't think it obviates the need for this connecting to the recycled water distribution systems. Would someone like to make a motion on 2.3.16 to start the discussion? Moved by Everett. Do you have a second? Second by Tova. She beat you, Mike. You gotta be faster. You're right on the ball today. Tova?
Question for planning, since DEM isn't here. Is there not already a requirement by law if there's a certain distance where connection to R1 infrastructure is required?
So that was my first reaction too, but that's for sewer lines. It's not for, this is for recycled water distribution systems.
On the west side it is.
Really?
Yeah, it might have been specific to commercial properties, but we were working with resorts in that area to get their infrastructure together, because once that came, that was going to become a requirement. But this is where I'd love confirmation, because it's been some years.
On the west side, it's also included in the community plan. I do not believe that is a law. There is for the sewer system, but not for recycled water.
Discussion? Atua? No.
Then absolutely, let's keep it.
Okay.
But might also do some digging this week and just check where I'm getting that from.
I mean, there are other things like, golf courses are not allowed to use potable water. But Any objections to the language as written, which I guess is the same as in the West Maui plan, except for south versus west? Okay, fine, we've adopted 3.16 as written. 2.3.17, support the use of gray water and recycled water in county parks and community gardens. And then we had a testimony from Maui Tomorrow suggesting that we add when safe and appropriate to do so.
The reason this is not already done is because it's prohibited by the Department of Health, so it won't be done until it's safe to do so, but you can add that.
Daniel?
Oh, and Maui Tomorrow also added the word require versus support.
Oh, okay, right.
Require the use of gray water and recycled water in county parks and community gardens when safe and appropriate to do so, which Karen says that that's according to the DOH rules, but it's okay to include it.
Are you making a motion?
Yes.
Do we have a second? Mike, he beat you this time, Tova. Discussion? It seems like every year there are bills in the legislature to enable gray water reuse, but they never pass for some reason. Tova?
Oh, I was just wanting to clarify whether you were going with the Maui Tomorrow proposed language or the planning department, but I see it's getting amended.
I think the Maui Tomorrow
Great.
language submitted by Natalie Harcrow.
Yep.
Received on 3/6/23 via email.
Any objections? Brian?
Objection. It actually states that it's safe and appropriate to do so. So adding the word appropriate. Oh, new copy. Okay.
Smarty.
Sure.
Yes, go ahead.
Just for clarification, I guess from the long range, that we're saying that, is this new or is this going to that they're going to retrofit?
They wouldn't retrofit until they come in for a permit anyway, so it would be when something's being updated. But I believe the reason it said support instead of require is because it's not allowed by law right now. So I guess saying when it's safe and appropriate to do so does the same thing.
I guess where I was going is that we may not be building that many new parks, so doing a retrofit, is that more advantageous for us? Because I'm not sure I don't know how many parks we're going to build, but we certainly have enough parks now that by putting this in, we're not really changing anything that those parks are doing.
This is a policy, so it would only be implemented when when they come in for permits. So if you want to do that, you can add that in actions.
Good point.
Mike?
Karen, when you say the DOH won't allow, is that both or just the gray water?
Recycled water is allowed, but gray water is not allowed to be used.
Good. That's what I thought you meant, but I wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Tova, you had a comment?
Just only that R1 water isn't safe for use on edible portions of plants, so that's why the addition of appropriate and safe is good for the community garden addition. It's separate from the DOH gray waters.
we wouldn't want it running off into the ocean anyway, that as well, so that's another good point. Any further discussion? Any objections? Okay, adopting 2.3.16, and it is time for another 5-minute break, as I understand it. Resuming at 7:40 p.m. and starting with policy 2.3.18. Support amendments to the Maui Island Plan and Community Plan and changes in zoning for the acquisition of land outside the Sluraxa for the construction of a new wastewater collection system and treatment options to serve the Ma'alaya area.
Chair Rob.
So remember, this is a policy, and there'll be actions too. Go ahead.
I was wondering if I could ask a question from one of from Tapani who testified earlier. Yeah, point of information, please.
Is it about this item?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. You okay? With me asking? Okay. Sorry. So Tapani, thanks again. In your involvement with wastewater possible plans in Ma'alaya, what type of lands have you been in discussion with as far as where possibility of this being?
Yeah, hello. Okay, so the original wastewater feasibility study by Brown and Caldwell, they identified for an MBR plant, that's a membrane bioreactor plant, that's the most modern technology. Footprint would be about 2 acres. So we realized early on that we need to find these 2 acres, preferably outside the tsunami zone. So we reached out to Jason Watts at Mahipono, and we asked for permission to lease 2 acres of land from them for the purpose of this regional wastewater facility. They came back to us and said, gentlemen, we can actually do better than that. We are going to lease 10 acres of land for $1 a year for you. We will build a green belt, Mauka of Haole Street, and we will revitalize the Malaya Community Garden for you as part of this deal. The community garden part has been taken off since that time. They also said that if Maui County takes this over, we will give this land to Maui County, so for free. The issue for us will be that we will need to go to the planning department for rezoning because this land is zoned as ag, so we need to look at appropriate zoning as we get closer into the engineering, actually PER, preliminary engineering report. We are starting to work on that right now.
Thank you, Tabani. Very informative.
Thank you.
So motion to adopt, so we can discuss.
Thank you, Tapani.
Further questions?
First, do we have a second from Brian? Okay. Wayne?
Go ahead with the motion.
Yeah, motion there's a motion and a second.
Has the site been identified?
Yes, sir. It is actually, you know where the highway meets the Malaya Road, right there on the left-hand side. You see the white circle a little bit lower, down lower. And you see the Kanayo stream that was actually rerouted. You see the cults coming down from the highway, going to the retention basin. It's actually on the Haleakala side. Go up north a little bit, no, down. And move the cursor down to where the word Kanayo is. Go down left a little bit up. It's right there. That will be the location that's outside the tsunami zone. And SMA area.
And it will be subdivided?
I'm not sure if I understand that question. I believe so.
We'll probably have to identify that with public, quasi-public. And I'm curious if they're going to be given any other land usage.
That I do not.
In the area.
Yeah, that I do not know. Early on, we approached the director of planning, Michelle McLean. She was very supportive of this project, and she said she would bundle up the applications together and streamline it in that way. Of course, we would not ask any special treatment. It has to go by the book. We have not met with the current director yet. We plan to do so shortly.
Thank you, sir.
This is so that you guys don't have to identify where. It's saying that when they come, you want to support the amendments. So when they come before Maui County Council for the amendment for public, quasi-public, put it where they need it.
Cite it on the map.
You don't need to cite it. When they cite it, you're supporting the amendment to the Maui Island Plan and the community plan. So that you don't have to envision where it is. They've already done that. But you just want to support it when it comes in front of County Council.
Thank you, ma'am.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any objections? We adopted 2.3.18. 2.3.19, support the transition, this is kind of related, of the Ma'alai area away from the use of wastewater injection wells to a new system that increases treatment and provides better options for reuse or disposal of wastewater. And Maui Tomorrow is proposing a slight change in prose. Eliminate the use of wastewater injection wells in Ma'alai through the transition to the new system that increases the disinfection level and treatment capacity to provide better options for reuse or disposal of wastewater. You guys all have that? Yeah, okay. Okay, so.
I agree with the addition of the married
With the addition of married Okay. You should use the microphone when you speak, even though we can hear you. Just so it gets recorded. Okay, so Everett makes a motion to use the Maui Tomorrow language. Is there a second? Second by Kyoki. Wayne?
For planning, I was looking at this map that Rob provided with us, dated 3/3, cesspools in South Maui. And I was looking at the area from Maui Nui Golf Club, including, I would think, Maui Meadows and the Wailea development that is full of red dots. Why do we not have a recommendation from long-range planning to put a sewage treatment plant in the area when you know that these cesspools will be phased out? I read priority 1, priority 2, and priority 3 converted by 2030, 2035, 2050. I would think that long-range planning would at least look at, for those of us that live on Maui, and for this committee that's not uneducated, that we would at least cite a plant in that area.
As you just said, cesspools by law are going to be phased out by 2050. You could put some sort of policy in there. I was here for the writing of this plan, but I did not write this plan.
So,
You're
here now.
I did have a couple of suggestions for that in the action section to conform with the cesspool working group's recommendations. So yeah, I think we'll be covering it. But let's see, we had a motion, we had a second on the Maui Tomorrow language. So I'll just read it. Eliminate the use of wastewater injection wells in Maui through the transition to the new system that increases the disinfection level and treatment capacity to provide better options for reuse or disposal of wastewater. Any further discussion on that one? Any objections? Okay, I've adopted that language for 2.3.19. And do we have any additional policies for topic 3? Oh, sorry, Everett?
Yep. If I can find it now, loaded somewhere here. Let's see. All right, this is from memory. The engineer acquire necessary easements and fund the extension of a wastewater, a recycled water line from the Kihei treatment facility to the intersection of Wailea, Alanui. And does anyone know the name of the road that runs down beside Mulligan's and Kealani Hotel?
Kauha? Is that Kauha?
Yes. That's the motion.
Can you just repeat?
Engineer acquire necessary easements and fund the construction of a recycled water line from the Kihei treatment plant to the intersection of Wailea, Alanui.
That's your motion?
Intersection of Wailea, Alanui and
Kauha'a Street. Is this really an action, a policy, or is this an action? This is an action, right?
We could say support. We could say support the engineer.
Wow, you have a download to the tricks here.
Do you want the county to do this, or do you just want it to be, or you want it to support the construction of a recycled water line?
We want the county to do it.
So that's an action, and we can just copy this language and put it in actions.
Okay.
And I misspelled acquire, but I'll take it.
And basically, this takes a resource that we're injecting into the ground now, and it carries it out to the resort, which is probably the biggest water user in the county for irrigation.
Okay, so we'll get to this soon under actions, but are there any additional policies? Someone said there was a Maui Tomorrow one. I missed. Does anyone have it in front of them?
There's one which is eliminate the use of water injection wells in South Maui to reduce ocean pollution by expanding the recycled water distribution system's infrastructure and increasing the quality of disinfection.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion.
Question.
Yes, Wayne.
Are we committing Maui County to expand our sewage treatment area? And at what cost? Everett?
I don't think it increases the service area. The service area would retain the same, stay the same. This basically just takes the treated water to the largest water user in the county so that they aren't using potable water for irrigation.
The one you said is the one at the bottom of the screen currently, right? The expand the recycled water distribution system infrastructure.
Yeah.
So if we want this to be a policy, it needs to be support the expansion of recycled water distribution system infrastructure.
Okay, okay with Everett. And, yeah. Who was the second? Brian, okay. She had actually proposed as an action.
I think the motion was actually on the injection wells.
So, okay, so we didn't finish that one?
Right, so it was the eliminate the use of wastewater injection wells. So that was what the motion was.
Oh.
That Everett so moved, I second.
Okay.
And so I think once we've done that, then we can go to the one that was tentatively in action, comes back to me now in potential policy.
Okay. A discussion on this eliminate the use of wastewater injection wells. Any objections? Fine, we have adopted that one. Eliminate the use of wastewater injection wells. And the next one again, I think that she proposed as an action. Yeah, it is more of an action than a policy. So we're not losing this, we're getting back to it, but do we have any more policies?
Yes. Support the engineering and acquisition of necessary easements to provide sewer service to Maui Meadows. In Wayne, this does expand the service area, this motion.
I have something to say about it.
Okay, use the microphone.
Mr. Chairman, I watched the 670 and the Wailea development occur to this part of the island. And I've seen nothing but rich homes and expensive condos being built. For a long time, I was wondering why I don't have friends that are locals that are living there. They can't afford it. And here, development is asking, putting up a sign, sorry, locals, you can't afford it to live here. And I said last week, I'm really hurt because I care about Maui County. I care about our people and their ability to live in any part of Maui County. And it seems like the words emanating from my mouth is speaking to deaf ears. Have we become so cold-hearted as to accept what is happening in the Makena area and Wailea area? And I guess I'm asking you guys to open up your hearts. You see what's happening. I see all your faces. You live here. Don't you feel that obligation to the South Maui community? I wonder what your kids and our kids are going to feel like 10 years down the road. Are you going to be proud enough to say, I pinned my name. I sat on this committee and I pinned my name to these actions. I want to see how you're going to feel in your heart. Thank you.
So that last one there, we had a motion and a second?
No second.
No second yet, okay. We have a second for the one the furthest down there? Second by Tova. We got a just something to take home because I don't think we have time to look at it now. But we had someone from LEDCorp was in and dropped off some ideas, some additional suggestions for dealing with cesspools in Maui Meadows. Everett?
My reason for this is basically you've got the septic and cesspools in Maui Meadows, and it all drains down. I mean, it all ends up in the ocean, and the governor has expressed interest in providing state funding for these type of projects. But I think this is one for, in terms of South Maui, I think this is could be the biggest impact for water quality in South Maui.
Agree. Any objections?
No.
Okay, let's take a vote. So those in favor of support? So, Ren, you had a comment?
Yeah. So Everett, this one, I thought we was going to go to that bar and grill. Mulligan's? Is this the same one? No.
No, different motion. That's to take the recycled water from the Kihei treatment facility, to take it down through the resort so that the resorts don't use potable water for irrigation. This one is to basically replace the septic and cesspools in Maui Meadows so that that water becomes treated instead of being basically flowing into the ground.
Yeah, that's okay. No, because we got to go correct the street name. The one later after.
It's wrong street.
Yeah, it's called Kaki.
All right, Jennifer?
Okay, back to Everett's. The comments that Casey dropped off, his email, that supports this. I like his language about exploring the use of state and county grants. Does everybody see that? So Casey dropped off this email printout. And is that what this is applying to? Would this be the right place to put in some more language to support your policy, Everett? Do you see?
I hadn't seen this. I like it. I like it a lot. Matter of fact, I think we just take it the way it's worded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So friendly amendment?
Yes.
And who was the second on that one? Tova. Okay, okay. You okay with that? Yep. So it's I'll just read it. Support the conversion of cesspools to septic tanks or regional wastewater treatment system, primarily in Ma'alai and Maui Meadows by 2035, as recommended by the state's cesspool conversion working group. Explore the use of state and county grants, as well as the county improvement district to help finance the conversions. And I'm fine with that. I just want to point out that the cesspool conversion working group, they're actually divided by priorities into priority 1, 2, and 3. And Maui Meadows is priority 3, which is 2035. And priority 2, which are all those red dots, that's supposed to be 2030. But we'll get that a little bit when we get to the actions. But the good news is that most of those red dots don't actually exist. So I think this is fine, this proposal. Tova?
So if Maui was 2030, why would we want to say 2035?
That's the missing part. You're right.
Right. So I mean, because I would rather see it be 2030 for both and pushing Maui Meadows sooner versus pushing Maui out.
Why don't we just take out the date and say Maui Meadows, period, and delete the rest of that sentence?
Personally, I like the time frame.
Having a deadline is kind of important.
But I would like to move it up. I'm trying to move it up.
Well, that's what I'm saying. 2030 would then.
Okay.
Because I think without having a date, it'll get pushed and pushed. So.
It says by, right?
But we all know how that works.
Okay, I'm fine with changing it to 2030. Seems like a long way off.
And so who was the second on that? Was that Tova? Okay with that? Okay, 2030 is by 2035, not vice versa, so that's good. That works. Tova?
I actually prefer the language that Everett had in the beginning that prioritizes. I mean, the problem with this is it's saying septic tanks are fine, and they're not. So I would say support the conversion to regional wastewater systems or a environmentally appropriate alternative if necessary. But prioritizing proper treatment is what we want. We don't want to take a problem and make it a slightly less worse problem, but still a problem. We want to solve the problem. So I'm friendly amending.
And you can second?
And I can second.
If you don't, we have a problem. So we're going to take out the septic tanks.
Okay, so who went first?
Just curious, on the same letter from Casey Lam, it says on the bottom about the Department of Health's cesspool grant. So it says converting their cesspools or connecting to available sewage system. So the available sewage system, does that include a possible septic tank? Is that something that it's not, that's not what they mean, yeah? So I just wanted to make sure that, because if it doesn't say that there, then definitely supporting what Tova says in regards to not putting the septic tank. But in terms of maybe expediting this, and of course within a reasonable time frame, but maybe support the immediate conversion. I don't know if that makes it different or not, but just to get people going and doing it, and rather than waiting until 2030, but just to maybe put the word, the immediate conversions. I don't know for that part, but I just really wanted to ask that question of what that means, available sewage system. So it just means tying into the county system then. Okay, I just had to ask.
Brian?
I wanted to kind of say that I think explore the use of state and county grants, that whole sentence, wouldn't that be more of an action than a policy?
Yes, it would. You could leave the first part and then use the second part and add the second part. You can rework the sentence for the action if you want to leave that as a policy. Or you can just bring it all down to a policy, an action.
So I would make a friendly amendment to remove the explore, the use of state and funds, so on and so forth, and make that an action.
I kind of like moving it all to an action.
Yeah, I actually already have a proposal for an action there, which is very similar, but yeah, let's do that. If you're okay. But I do want to point out one thing, that's that what Lehua said is actually important because, not that I think it's going to happen, but one option would be that the Kihei treatment facility extend the sewer lines to Maui Meadows. That's probably going to be too expensive, but that's not something that would be acceptable too. So connecting to would be connecting either to an existing sewer system or establishing a new regional wastewater system. Is basically what I'm saying.
Or maybe if 670 moves forward, maybe I would assume that they're running a sewer line from their project, which is further south in Maui Meadows, so it's going to run right down the road and then just connect into that.
That's also a possibility, yeah. Yes?
So in regards to the septic tanks though, so does people who have septic tanks have to tie into the county line, or is that what a septic tank does immediately? Because you go cesspool, septic tank, and then ideally straight into the county? How does that?
They would tie into the county sewer system.
Okay, and then when injection wells were mentioned earlier by Mr. Tipani, I think it was, is that's what a cesspool is, an injection well. But what is a septic tank? Is that considered part of an injection well or totally different?
Different.
And so again, and I'm sorry for repeating this, but we also want to do away with septic tanks. We'd prefer to have it.
Sewer systems are better than septic tanks.
Okay, but people can go from cesspool to septic tanks if they cannot tie into the county line?
If the county sewer line runs in front of their property,
Yes.
then they would tie into the sewer line.
Okay.
Exactly.
Or behind their property. If it's adjacent to their property,
Okay.
then they would have a lateral to that system.
Yes.
Okay, okay.
They're required by county code.
Yeah, well, I lived on a property where we're grandfathered in, and because of the Blue Rock, and that's up on the Key Heights, Mackay Heights area. And so we added onto our property, so we had to convert our cesspool and tie in. But there was a problem. The county wasn't able to help us to find where the lateral tie-in was unless I hired an engineer and I paid thousands and thousands of dollars to tie in. So we had to get a pump station. So now all my plumbing is like messed up. And so I didn't mind, I like that we were able to close our cesspool, but we didn't have much assistance. That's why I like the grant, because I wish I had the grant. But I'm still on a pump station that has a lift and pump into. So that's why I wanted to ask if I had the choice of going to a septic tank thereafter, maybe that would have been easier, because our pump station gives us a lot of problem. But I just had to ask about the septic tank.
I believe the current administration is considering using the tourist fee that's going to be added on to plane tickets potentially to fund projects like this.
There's already $20,000 per $20,000 grant per unit to upgrade. Okay, so we've moved everything to actions now? Okay. Do we have any more policies?
Quick question, Chair. The last one that said support the expansion of recycled water distribution. Did I miss that motion?
I don't think you guys discussed that one. It was like you mentioned it and then I copied it.
Yeah, so I don't think we discussed that one.
So you want to make a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion to accept the language as written. I haven't read it all, but I'll make a motion.
Do we have a second? Second by Jennifer. One at the very bottom there.
I don't understand. I don't understand this this policy. I mean, to me, it just is mixing a lot of things that are pretty much unrelated to recycled water distribution infrastructure. I mean, what does stormwater capture systems have to do with recycled water distribution system or natural earth filtering?
Well, you could say that there are alternatives to the injection wells, which is how some of the water from the KA facility is currently being dealt with.
But I don't see how that relates to stormwater capture.
Nope, it doesn't. Tova?
I'm not sure that I'm fully getting the intent of this. I'm a bit confused as well, and I'm wondering if it's this expansion of recycled water distribution system. We think of recycled water as what comes from the wastewater reclamation facilities, and so that verbiage, I think, is conflating things. Perhaps the intention here is to support innovative water reuse techniques. Oh, yes, yes. because you proposed it, right? Yeah.
If that is a friendly amendment, I will accept it.
Okay.
Me too.
So nix the recycled water distribution system. And add innovative techniques for better utilization of water.
Now I get it. I couldn't quite see where it was going, but now I see.
Just water.
Oh, do you think they're talking about R1 water?
Yes. Yes. That's what it's about.
Okay, that's where the stormwater thing was really not making it clear.
It was talking about both, but that doesn't make sense.
No.
So one or the other. Now it makes sense. And it's a policy. So, who was the motion on this? That was Brian? Yes, Brian. And the second was?
Me.
Jennifer, okay. Discussion? Wayne?
So again, we get controlled by development interests as to what happens to Wailea, McKenna, and you send all the stool and urine down towards our treatment plant in Kie. And the residents are not stupid anymore. We have educated ourselves. The old tricks don't work anymore. And as somebody that's lived here 60 years, I'm kind of sad that we're going to allow McKenna and Wailea to be sold out. Developers are pretty lucky that the kupuna are not living anymore. And if they were to see the desecration of the Aina, I'm sure they would curl up in their graves and shed tears. For many of us that were born and raised here on Maui, think of the action that you are about to do tonight. And I hope you're not stupid. And I hope that you have a conscience that you somehow feel in your heart that you don't use the word pono as something that has no meaning. Anyway, I'm voting against the motion.
Okay. Any further discussion on the expansion of techniques for R1 reuse? Vernon and then Cody.
So our kupuna, they're gonna be okay with this. So I don't know what kupuna you're talking about, Uncle. So pono, I get no problem using a rod of pono, because all we're doing is trying to disperse the R1 water, correct? So, or we just leave the, the buildup goes somewhere else, whether it's in South Maui or Wailea. We're just dispersing the R1 water. So like for our campus at Lokelani Intermediate School, we run the darn thing as much as we can. We the major users as for square foot property, or I think we get like 5 acres for just that parcel. We use a lot in 5 acres, because the idea is to use as much as we can on land, or else it ends up the way we don't like them end up. So yeah, I'm okay with this. I think it's a Pono decision that we're doing this.
I'll speak for the last time. Mr. Redden, if you go down to Grand Wailea and you were to see the iwi kupuna of your ancestors dug up by the development of and untreated and not taken responsibly, would you be okay with it? I'm speaking for the last time.
You sure? Yeah, I'm okay with that. You know why? That was our kupuna's time. Now it's our time. And whatever we choose the best we can today, they're never going to dock us any points, because we're doing the best we can. Whatever happened in the past, we try our best to preserve our past. But yeah, I never liked the Grand Wailea project. My father, Uncle Les, many others never liked that project. And I'm sure they did the best they can at that time. So that's, I get Ohana. I probably get Ohana, being desecrated. But they're also watching us here tonight doing the best we can. I get what you're saying, Uncle, the developers. If we could stop development, how you do that? I don't know. But then we gotta do something Mauka. Some kind of project gotta happen Mauka. Because we see all the effects that we have. So our kupunas did the best they could. They don't was as boisterous as we are today. They don't have the access like we have access today. And I'm okay, with what we're doing. There's a lot of projects even the non-Hawaiians doing. You would think they would shake the beds, right? They're not. And I think the reason is they're letting us experience life right now the way we choose to. They had their time, but we're not being disrespectful. I know we're not being disrespectful to them. And they're not going to dock points or give us scoldings or give us lickings at night. Because we're doing the best we can from our heart. That's all.
I'll end it. There is 2 words in the English language. One is yes and one is no. We gotta be strong enough to learn how to say no. Thank you.
Okay, ready to vote? Those in favor? I'm sorry. Oh, Cody?
Sorry. Yeah, no, I just wanted to add to that too. I was thinking a lot about it. It's kind of why I went off to use the bedroom. We'll think about it a little bit, but I think it's about clarity as well. When I first heard it, the first thing that came to my mind was something that can ensure more development happening in McKenna, and I don't like to see that. There's so much happening in McKenna already that I feel like we gotta slow down, but when I see more opportunities for water and things like that, it tells me that there's going to be more ways for development to continue in this area. The other thing I think about also is all the water coming from the Wai'eha. There's a lot of water coming from the Wai'eha that is being used for these developments currently. And then I'm thinking about the potable water, all the potable water that is being used for these developments as well. So, clarity, thinking about it, what is the lesser evil, right? And I understand where you're coming from, Uncle, because I feel the same way. We spend a lot of our time, years, fighting for these areas. But the fight is everywhere, It's fighting for the water, it's fighting for the land, it's fighting for space. And a lot of times we put in these corners, right? Which makes being here very hard. But I want to see the aquifer in the Wai'eha being that we don't have to depend on that. I want to see less use of our potable water. And if this is the answer to do that while trying to mitigate development at the same time, I feel like maybe this is it. So that's my take on it.
Tova?
I don't want to belabor this, but I'm realizing that I had a very different picture in my mind than what some of you had in relation to this. So currently, the R1 water that gets injected is injected because they don't have anything to do with it. It could be distributed for forage. It could be stored somewhere, but those things aren't happening yet. There's projects underway to try to do those things, to create elevated storage, to expand the use, because as we all know, and believe to be the case, we can't use so much fresh water for things. It's crazy that we are not using and allowing the water that's here, that's treated to an R1 standard for something. So when I read this, what it's saying is, let's support those projects that are trying to do that now. There are ways that we could get around it immediately that are really easy, using some of these techniques to stop injecting the R1 while we figure out the lines to get it to whatever highest and best use is as our community decides it is. So to me, this is about getting to solutions for a problem that we know in a faster, quicker, more environmentally friendly way. It actually has nothing to do with development or expansion or anything like that. It's just a way to address a current pollution source with available techniques.
So this R1 water, I look at that too as a highway. Like if we had one highway up above Pilani Highway, it's another opportunity for more development. So I was just speaking on our kupuna and how what is Pono and what he might think that not Pono. But R1, I would label that like if we're asking for another highway above Pilani Highway. Same thing. We're just expanding on more development, but we like keep that development. I mean, I don't like anymore, but I think I'm looking more at how we control certain development. Because unless anybody else get a better idea how we can stop them, I don't know that part yet.
Okay, I think it's time to go to a vote on this one. So those in favor, please raise your hand. And those opposed? Yeah. Any abstaining? Okay, fine, we've adopted this one. Supporting the expansion of innovative techniques. Do we have any other policies around resilient systems? Okay, it is time for a 5-minute break. Go through? Okay. Okay, starting on actions for resilient systems. Let's see. Okay, starting with 3.01. Conduct a detailed vulnerability assessment of all existing county infrastructure and facilities in South Maui that are within the state-recognized Lorexa and subject to other coastal hazards to determine if relocation, retrofitting, or protective measures are needed. Coordinate with the state on key state infrastructure and facilities such as highways. This sounds like a mix of policy and action. Integrate the assessment's findings into current and future plans and projects as applicable. Establish adaptive management program to monitor progress. It's a mouthful. Vulnerability assessment. Okay, so the focus is on assessment of existing infrastructure and facilities within this Lorexa in preparation for things like do they need to be relocated or upgraded or whatever, protected. Okay, do we have a motion? Motion by Everett. Do we have a second? Second by Lewa. Just curious, is this the same as in the West Maui plan? It's not.
I don't remember because it's been a little minute since I read it.
Do we need coordinate with state on key state infrastructure and facilities such as highways included in this? Can we delete that just to make it simpler and more of an action?
Can you think of state infrastructure that's in the Lorexa in Kihei?
Is the boat launch, is that state?
That's state, but it's also kind of outside of the jurisdiction of the community plan.
Okay.
Big beach. Okay, let's see.
You could probably take it out.
Anything in the NARS, yeah, that's right, including the building there and all that infrastructure. That's true. Good, Laura.
So you would take out the integrate the assessments findings? It's crossed out? Is that what we're wanting? Because I thought that would stay. And then coordinate with the state, I mean, as needed, I mean, in case something pops up, but if not.
I would agree with keeping it in as needed because we don't necessarily know what may get built in the near future. So if they happen to put in a highway or wherever it is, then they wouldn't be coordinating it. So I would support keeping it with that as is.
So this is what the West Maui plan says. It's kind of a subset. It says, conduct a detailed vulnerability assessment of all existing county infrastructure and facilities in West Maui that are within the state-recognized Lorexa and subject to other coastal hazards. Coordinate with the state on key state infrastructure and facilities such as highways and schools, period. So it's pretty much the same, except this one adds integrating the findings and establishing a program, which is good. Did we have a motion on this? We have from Everett and a second from the Hua. Okay. Discussion? Any objections? I find we have adopted 3.01 with that change. (3.02) Conduct a feasibility study to identify areas that could support a managed relocation strategy in South Maui. Include an analysis of alternatives and interim steps to achieve managed relocation, incentives for proactive relocation, and zoning code changes needed to adjust land uses or transfer of development rights. Consider developing programmatic environmental documents, policies, and regulations as needed to assist in incentivizing and implementing managed relocation. And I made a note here, maybe instead of considering developing, to actually develop.
I move that we approve this with the revision of develop instead of considering to develop.
Do you have a second? Second by Brian. Right.
Potentially doing a friendly amendment to after develop to and implement programmatic environmental documentations. Again, the develop is all by itself. It doesn't have its implementation.
Okay.
And I will accept my friendly amendment as well.
Any further discussion? Any objections? I found we have adopted 3.02 with those small changes. So I'm wondering if we shouldn't take a break now, because if we're going to continue until 9. Does that sound right, people? Or do you want to just push through? Push through? Keep going? I'll keep going, okay. Okay. Okay, standing is okay. You're still part of the meeting. 3.09, develop and provide regional and site-specific proactive guidance on managed relocation strategies to owners of at-risk properties in South Maui. Identify environmental conditions to support site-specific management planning, as well as legal and policy needs to facilitate implementation and address barriers. Moved by Everett. Second by Tova. So the second sentence there is the purpose of that to figure out how to help these people who need to relocate? Does that provide guidance to them or help assistance? I mean, is the second sentence still referring to the owners?
That's my understanding.
Okay. If you say so. Brennan?
The owners would be like private homeowners, including the hotels too? Hotels and condos, or just private homeowners?
Right now, it doesn't distinguish commercial owners or private residential owners.
Karen, you had a comment?
The first part, or the second part, is saying that just really define how you're going to do it so it's clear. Like, don't just develop site specific by site. Like, do like have some general rules that everyone knows and understands, and then you can come in as the owners of an at-risk property, and they'll help you develop and provide regional and site-specific plans.
Okay, thanks. Makes sense. Brennan?
Karen. So this just my feelings. So county over here look like one funding source, right? I just say, I think they're gonna like focus on private homeowners first, and then keep the hotel industry separate. That's just, I just know that. Because
do you want to add prioritizing homeowners before resorts?
This is something we might have to come back, but I think at least it's out there. Because I just get on feeling the county going to like take care of the homeowners first before the hotels.
The way I read this is it's providing guidance. So guidance is just policy. It's just paving the way so each entity isn't having to figure it out from scratch, because it's going to be a nightmare. So, I mean, I hear you and I agree, but I almost feel like that's another step. Maybe that's an action that's support homeowners explicitly in their desire to retreat, which is different from develop the guidance for how to do it overall.
Yeah, thanks for the clarity. That's good enough.
Any further discussion? Any objections? Okay, I find we have adopted 3.06.
3.
I'm sorry, 3.03. My eyes are fading, sorry. 15 minutes left here. Okay. Okay, 3.04. Obtain funding to train existing staff and hire more county staff to expand and develop expertise and manage coastal retreat.
So moved.
Moved by Everett.
I'll second.
Second by Jennifer. Discussion? I think this is something we don't have and we're going to need in rapidly growing scale.
We need more.
Yeah, we don't have any experience with this yet, so Ma'alai may actually be the first we get to do planned retreat. Any objections? I'm going to adopt it 3.04 as written. 3.05, integrate the state-recognized LREC site into South Maui capital improvement planning and projects for all county departments and public facilities to prioritize relocation and avoid irrevocable investment of resources in high-risk areas.
A question, clarification question for planning. Is this seriously not already the policy? Holy cow, okay. The move to adopt as written.
Second.
Second by Everett. Discussion. Any objections? I've adopted 3.05. 3.06, then we get back to cesspools. So let's try and combine all these various ideas and suggestions we had to a smaller number that are not too much overlapping. So I had one here which is kind of similar to what we discussed a little bit earlier. Identify properties with on-site disposal systems. And one reason I have that there is because we don't know. I mean, this cesspool conversion working group is way, way off when it comes to Kihei. Develop and implement a plan to convert all in Maui meadows by 2035 and all others in South Maui by 2030 through connection to county sewer lines or to a new local wastewater reclamation facility. So this overlaps heavily with what we discussed earlier, so we should combine them. Maybe you can put up on the screen again the one that we were working on before. We decided to move. Yep, that's it. So the only change I would suggest then is to add this identify properties, because right now we don't know, and it's unreasonable to, I mean, just total waste of money if we're going to say we're going to convert Moana Estates, for example, which has never been on a cesspool system. So that's my suggestion.
So after the first part, support the conversion.
Identify location of and support the conversion of.
So you want, like after, okay.
Identify the locations of and support the conversion of cesspools too.
And you want to leave primarily in Ma'ala and Maui Meadows?
I think that makes sense to focus there because there are very few, if any, outside of those two areas right now. But if we have identified, then that opens for clearing up the lack of data that we have right now. So that's a suggestion for a friendly amendment to okay. Okay. And this would be instead of the proposed language in 3.06, which becomes redundant, I believe. So any discussion? Okay.
Just so I know we've asked a couple of different people at a couple of different times about if we're going to revise the priority levels. Do you guys still see this as medium? Yeah, we're going to do this later, right? Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Any objections? Daniel?
Yeah, I'm going to have to recuse myself. The reason for that is I submitted a request for an advisory opinion regarding service on the South Maui Community Plan Advisory Committee to the Board of Ethics. And specifically, I was asking for an advisory opinion on the applicability of the new amendments to the County Ethics Code to my volunteer participation in South Maui community groups with pending litigation. So that request was considered by the Board of Ethics this afternoon. And the board voted to recommend, I don't believe it's in writing yet, but it may be soon, that I would need to recuse myself from all deliberations or actions pertaining to the Maui Meadows Neighborhood Association and to Maui Meadows proper, meaning the Maui Meadows neighborhood where I live. And the reason for recusing myself from Maui Meadows neighborhood is because I own property there and I have a financial interest, which I found strange since I thought the reason why that I'm on CPAC, and many of us are on CPAC because of where we live and what we know about the areas where we live. But that was a recommendation put forth and approved by the Board of Ethics today. So that means I have to recuse myself from all deliberations and actions that have to do with the neighborhood where I live.
So what about where I live, like Hilton, Pilani Promenade, and Kulani Hakoi, those consultations, and I get property, but I gotta pay on a mortgage. Yeah, this is messed up. I mean,
Yeah, it was totally out of left field. Kavika?
I just have a point of clarification, or seeking a point of clarification from Daniel. So when you say that the Board of Ethics made a recommendation, are you saying that it's discretionary? What does recommendation mean?
It's an their advisory opinion to avoid conflicts of interest and ethics violations.
If I can comment. I have a direct, I have a similar situation. So it's a recommendation until they vote on it and it's in writing and it becomes the course of action. So that's why it's a recommendation as far as, that's what happened to me.
Yeah, it hasn't put in writing yet,
Right.
so to my knowledge.
It takes
time, yeah. But that's what they asked me to do, and that's what I want to do.
Yeah, you have no choice. Same with me.
And of course, I wonder, does that mean I can't participate in discussions around Kamoli Heights where I live, or maybe South Kihei where I live, or maybe Kihei where I live? Jennifer?
No, it has to do with the fact that he's in a lawsuit and the fact that I lease land from the ranch. That we're direct, so if the ranch changes their zoning, we as a leasee can benefit from that, and therefore I have to recuse myself. He's in a lawsuit, and therefore that is a direct reflection of why he went to the ethics board, right? Because you're involved in a, is that correct?
Yes, I'm involved with the South Maui group, who is in pending litigation with someone who owns property in South Maui within the community plan area.
So it's not because you live in a certain area that we're talking about. We have special interests in the area that they are advising us how to interact with this committee.
That was why he went there, but that's not what they replied, though. That's not the recommendation. The recommendation is because he's a property owner in Maui Meadows, he has to recuse himself from discussions about his financial interest is his house. That's his sole financial
Yes.
interest.
It's because I own a home. I have
He owns a
financial
home.
interest in a home that's in Maui
That's a
Meadows.
conflict of interest.
That's what I was told.
Not that I'm looking for the details by any means, because lots of stuff goes on that I don't need to know. But if there's a lawsuit, it would sound like somehow the association is involved, and as an owner of an association, then you would be financially potentially benefit from it. So I don't know what the context is of the lawsuit, and again, it's not necessarily relevant for Jermaine, but if you're part of an association, then and if that association is taking action or is being actually taken against that association, that would be why you need to recuse. Not because you're a homeowner and that you own the home, it's from an association perspective.
It's true the association is involved in a pending litigation, but the litigation involves a property that is not in the community plan region.
So anyway, I guess the long and short is that Daniel's not voting on this one. So we have the motion. We have a second.
We do not have a motion or a second. We have the language up there because you asked for it.
I thought there was a motion that you just added and identified. Yeah,
Well, from
yeah.
before
Everett made the motion.
to make an action. This is
And Tova seconded.
Remember we moved it from a policy to an action? Is that not the motion?
He just added identify. We need further discussion? Tova?
I guess my only question on this one is we are still citing the State Cesspool Working Group, even though we changed everything from what they're recommending. We're no longer prioritizing and we're no longer using, are we using the timeline that they recommend?
Yes.
We are more aggressive with
Yes.
the timeline? Right, yeah, so I guess I'm wondering why we're still citing that when we're changing our priorities from what they've cited.
So what happened was that the Cesspool Work Group established new criteria for prioritization. The old one, as you may know, prioritized upcountry for all the wrong reasons, in my opinion. But anyway, they decided that effect on the ocean, effect on neighbors is more important. The effect on the groundwater is more important. So they came up with a new prioritization, which put us and South Maui, and in particular Ma'alaya and Kihei, and then secondly Maui Meadows up at the top of the list. So in that sense, we're in compliance. And like I said, 2030 is by 2035, but not vice versa. Further discussion? Any objections? Okay, we have adopted 3.06 as rewritten.
We do need you guys to discuss the letter for extension to the Maui County Council so that we can get that signed and sent.
Okay, so we have 2 minutes for that.
Thank you.
We have no choice, right?
Everett?
Can we recess this meeting?
Yes, we can. But let's first decide on the extension. So I think the extension makes sense. 3 months rather. It would make no sense at all to like ask for 2 weeks or a month, and when we know that it's going to be more than that. So do we need a motion on this to request an extension?
I move to accept the extension as written.
3 months, okay. Second by, give
to
Mike
Mike.
the second this time.
Oh, okay, you can have it.
Okay.
I'm getting
Any objections? Okay, recessing this meeting, which means it will resume at the same, with 3.07 next time.
Is that okay with you guys?
And closing the meeting at 9 p.m. exactly.
You finished rehearsing.